This is the problem here, right? Is that there is no care or interest in evidence or the facts or justice. Really, it's about politics. It's about, hey, are you one of us or are you one of them? Are you on our team or are you the quote unquote enemy? And as we've seen in this example and others, if you're not on our team, then you are a racist, you're a white supremacist, you're a terrorist. And they levy out these allegations really without care, again, for the evidence, facts, or the consequences. And we're seeing the same thing happening here with the judge in this trial because of his ringtone being a patriotic song, God Bless the USA. Well, obviously, they're saying, hey, he's biased towards Kyle Rittenhouse. So what conclusion are we to draw from that? That if you love America, then you are a white supremacist? This is the craziness of what we're seeing play out here, which really, for me, it shows that they hate America, that they have such disdain for those who love America, that this is the allegation that they throw out. And it's especially offensive as we sit here on Veterans Day. This disdain extends to those who wear or worn the uniform, who are willing to sacrifice their lives to serve our country. It's extremely offensive, and they should be ashamed of themselves.
They should, but they're not. So this week, the media and the Democrats quickly realized they were wrong about Kyle Rittenhouse. Turns out he wasn't a crazed white supremacist that went to Kenosha to kill people. That's clear now. The media's narrative is falling apart, so it's time to start pointing the fingers elsewhere. They must blame someone. So why not the judge? What's the allegation? They say he's biased because he's enforcing the court of law and keeping the prosecution from playing, those dirty tricks. But really, the left is just mad they're losing. So it's time to blame the referee. Watch.
Now, we have the rule of law in this country, which means the verdict must be respected, regardless of one's views on the outside. As it goes on, when you look at the judge and you look at the arguments, there are questions about whether this is on the level.
This judge is just really, this judge is an absolute joke. He's been a joke from the very beginning. It's absolutely disgusting the way he's conducting himself on the stand there. He's obviously playing for the audience, a certain audience.
It appears that this judge is auditioning for the cameras and looking for his next gig on Fox News or OWN or whatever, OAN or whatever it is. I mean, this judge is going beyond the pale and trying to show off for the country his conservative credentials or whatever it may be.
Yeah, so now they're attacking our institutions. I like to point out that this conservative judge that they're talking about was appointed by a Democrat. So once again, you can count on the liberal media to put their own false spin on the story. But they can't stop talking about the judge, just like they can't stop talking about Rittenhouse's testimony. I'll take that back. They're not just talking about it. They're mocking it. Mocking a kid who cried on stand because he took someone's life. Watch.
On cross-examination, what we saw was, I thought, a very rehearsed Kyle Rittenhouse. We won't hear from those two men that he killed. So it really comes down to, do we believe Kyle Rittenhouse is telling the truth, or is he just giving the performance of a lifetime?
They're having a protest in another state, and he takes it upon himself to go there, and then he says it's self-defense. No. And that acting job of the crying, I can't even look at it.
In comes my favorite basketball player, LeBron James. This is the claim that he's making. Look at this tweet. What tears? I didn't see one. Man, knock it off. The boy ate some lemon heads before walking into court. But don't pay attention to all this noise. Don't get distracted from the bigger story here. Why did this even happen? Because the government didn't do its job. I told you last night that the summer of 2020 was a violent and chaotic, especially in Kenosha after the Jacob Blake shooting. After 3 nights of rioting, people didn't feel safe. And there wasn't enough National Guard troops on the ground to protect them. Donald Trump saw what was going on and offered some help.
I got a call today from the congressman that represents that district, from Senator Johnson as well, really just pleading for help. Said that the local sheriff and mayor and police chief need some additional assistance. The president was on the phone with the governor today as well. We have a National Guard standing by that if the general for the National Guard needs additional help, we're there to do it. But today, that request was denied by the governor.
So they want you to forget what was happening during that period of time. You saw the cities on fire. You saw the menaces of society. And hours after Mark Meadows uttered those words, 2 people were shot dead in the street. Kyle Rittenhouse went to Kenosha because he felt like he had to do something. The vacuum of leadership created by Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers led to chaos, and people felt like they had to step up and fill that void, including a child. For the people who say Rittenhouse shouldn't have been in Kenosha that night, they're absolutely right. There should have been a National Guard presence so large that no private citizen would have felt the need to protect the city. But that didn't happen. And amid the chaos, a 17-year-old ended up shooting 3 people and claiming self-defense.
Tragically, 2 people lost their lives because citizens took matters in their own hand. I'm not for vigilantism. I'm not sure that's what was happening. People felt because the governor and local officials were looking for help. The governor did not accept the help, and so there was not the resolve to end the rioting. And so people took matters in their own hands, and that's what ended up happening.
Government failed to do its job. It abandoned its most important responsibility, protect your people. And because they neglected to perform that most basic function of governance, the blood is also on their hands. But you won't hear that from the media. Here to respond, Tulsi Gabbard, former Hawaii Congresswoman and a former presidential candidate. Congresswoman, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank
you. I've been following you on Twitter and some of your public comments. Part of the most concerning thing that I've been seeing from the media is that they don't remember that time, apparently, or they have amnesia. People didn't feel safe. And I'm not advocating for vigilante justice, but when government doesn't do its job, people step up to protect themselves.
That's exactly right. And I would not assume that they have amnesia, because when you think back to that time, we remember very clearly that immediately after this incident, this tragedy occurred with Kyle Rittenhouse, the mainstream media, pro-Antifa politicians were very quick to say this kid is a white supremacist terrorist. And so even at that time, in the midst of all of that chaos, there was no interest in saying, hey, you know what, this is a tragedy. The crisis that the city is facing is a tragedy. Let's actually wait and follow the evidence and let this work itself through our judicial system. The government absolutely failed to fulfill this most basic responsibility of keeping their community safe. Kyle Rittenhouse shouldn't have gone and done what he did. But as you said, he's a foolish kid who, like others in the community, felt like they had no other choice but to step up and to try to do their part to keep people safe.
Congresswoman, I have a problem with the inconsistency that I see from the left and people that claim to be civil libertarians that wanted to fight for the rights of the people. If you agree that the state shouldn't have the knee on someone's neck and kill them, then how could you support the state intentionally targeting a young man that it shows in the video that is self-defense? It shows on the witness stand the own prosecution's witness admitted that he aimed his gun at him first.
This is the problem here, right, is that there is no care or interest in evidence or the facts or justice. Really, it's about politics. It's about, hey, are you one of us or are you one of them? Are you on our team or are you the quote-unquote enemy? And as we've seen in this example and others, if you're not on our team, then you are a racist, you're a white supremacist, you're a terrorist. And they levy out these allegations really without care, again, for the evidence, facts, or the consequences. And we're seeing the same thing happening here with the judge in this trial. Because of his ringtone being a patriotic song, God Bless the USA, well, obviously they're saying, hey, he's biased towards Kyle Rittenhouse. So what conclusion are we to draw from that? That if you love America, then you are a white supremacist? This is the craziness of what we're seeing play out here, which really, for me, it shows that they hate America, that they have such disdain for those who love America, that this is the allegation that they throw out. And it's especially offensive as we sit here on Veterans Day. This disdain extends to those who wear or worn the uniform, who are willing to sacrifice their lives to serve our country. It's extremely offensive, and they should be ashamed of themselves.
They should, but they're not, because they want to take down political opponents. That is exactly what this is about, and it's sad. Congresswoman, thank you for your honesty here tonight on the program. Hope you come back. Also here tonight, my friend Dana Lash, nationally syndicated radio show host and a Second Amendment advocate. Dana, they're not just going after conservatives. They're not just going after average-day Americans. They're going after the Second Amendment. They think that that people that carry guns, we're crazy, and we just want to shoot people.
Yeah, and Lauren, so good to see you, my friend, as always. And it is. I think it's not just the Second Amendment, it's also self-defense. Self-defense is really on trial here. It's right in the seat with Kyle Rittenhouse. And you know, and looking at the video footage, I've seen, I don't know if there's any video footage out there that I haven't seen, and even slowed down frame by frame. There's no way on God's green earth that this is not self-defense. And people can have conversations as to whether or not he should have been there. But I mean, he had every right to be there, by the way. I think he had every right to be there. As a mother, I look and I'm like, I really don't want to, I don't want to offer my minor child up to the ravenous media. I mean, you saw what they did. You saw what the press did to Nick Sandmann, and all that kid did was smile. And with someone like Kyle Rittenhouse, I think you had a really good discussion. I think, Lawrence, you made a really good point earlier in discussing how really you had politicians that abandoned police who were not able to secure the town and protect the citizenry. And as a result, a lot of people thought, my gosh, if my police aren't going to be able to protect me, I need to be able to protect myself. And if Kyle Rittenhouse can't defend himself in all of the situations that are perfectly justifiable, and he was fleeing, he was attacked from behind, Gage Groskowitz testified that he had drawn down on him and pointed a gun at his head, and it wasn't until that point that Rittenhouse had fired. At every interaction, Rittenhouse's life was under threat, immediate lethal threat, and it satisfied every complete legal requirement needed in order to invoke self-defense and using fatal force for self-defense. To me, there's no argument. But the problem is, Lawrence, is that now because self-defense is under fire, people are going to be thinking, well, they're going to be second guessing themselves. And it's a self-defense case. Everyone has the right of self-defense. It doesn't matter if you're 17. It doesn't matter if you're 30. It doesn't matter where you are. None of those things determine your self-defense right. The Constitution does.
You're exactly right. There was this young lady, her name is Nicole Wallace. She used to work in a Republican White House, but now she has a show on MSNBC. I want to play a soundbite from her, and this sums up how they feel about us gun owners. Dana, take a look.
Every person that watches right-wing media isn't armed, and every person that's armed doesn't watch right-wing media. But the intersection is notable, and inside the intersection is, or I guess the intersection there is adjacent to this domestic terrorism.
We're domestic terrorists, Dana.
Yeah, I mean, they should actually call us domestic partners. Isn't that what the administration refers to actual terrorists, the Taliban? I mean, where's my Black Hawk? Where's, you know, all of the stuff that they got? Domestic and this isn't the first time Kathleen Rice, a sitting congresswoman, called me a domestic terrorist before, and she also intimated that every lawfully armed every firearm owner in America is a domestic terrorist, like you again, Lawrence, and me and everybody else. I think that's just grotesque. It's irresponsible. It's miles wide and inches deep. A reactionary commentary that passes for punditry these days, and frankly I find it embarrassing and shallow, and I really wish that people would employ critical thinking skills and pay attention to the nuance when discussing these issues. Just because someone is lawfully armed does not make them a domestic terrorist, and we have so many instances of defensive gun usage in this country. It vastly outweighs that of criminal usage. And furthermore, Lawrence, if every lawful law-abiding American that owned a firearm really posed a threat of domestic terrorism, don't you think that particularly in the last year and a half, when we've had record firearm sales, that we would have record crime to match that? And yet the only places where crime has increased have been Democrat-run cities that have stricter firearm laws than they do in our home state here, Texas.
You're exactly right. I don't want to hear anything about civility anymore, name calling, going after political opponents anymore. I don't want to hear anything about it because it's not about that. Right. It's about defeating their political opponents, and they made it very clear to us. Dana, thanks so much for coming on the program tonight.
It's about destruction.
That's exactly right. Coming up.